Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make a reverse dyed center burst shirt. I washed the shirt and so it's fresh out of the washing machine and it hasn't been soaked in anything. I also have the shirt turned inside out. I'm starting out with a navy blue Gildan Ultra Cotton t-shirt. And I'm going to center the shirt before I begin drawing on the design. This process is going to go pretty fast and it's a little more difficult to see on a darker shirt like the navy. So down below I have a link to another video which shows how to center a shirt. What centering does is it gets both sides of the front of the shirt next to each other and both sides of the back of the shirt next to each other. That way the shirt will look a little bit more symmetrical on the front and on the back once the dyeing process is finished. Now that I have the shirt centered, I need to draw on my design. I'm using a piece of white chalk and I'm making a mark where I'd like the center of my burst to be. Then I've tied a piece of kite string around the chalk, and using the kite string and the piece of chalk, I'm going to draw an arc on the shirt. Once I have this line drawn on the shirt, I'm going to fan fold it and tie it with some sinew. I'm using sinew to tie this design because the wax coating around the sinew will not allow the color remover to get under that area and remove all of the navy blue color from the shirt, and it also won't allow the dye under that area. I'm going to continue fan folding the shirt and tie some more sinew lines in it. I'm going to start out making the lines fairly close together, and then as I get further down the shirt, I'm going to make the distance between the lines a little bit larger. I'm going to go ahead and set the shirt aside and allow it to dry out for a couple of days. For the color removal process, I'm using Out White Brite laundry whitener. I've placed all of the shirts that I'm going to remove the color from inside of a container, and I have the container outside where I can get good ventilation. I'm also wearing my respirator for this entire process. This shirt is the navy blue shirt over on the left-hand side of the container. I'm beginning by sprinkling Out White Brite over the top of all of the shirts. Then I'm going to pour boiling hot water over the top. To speed up the process just a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit more Out White Brite. See how it starts removing the color right away? It doesn't take very long. I think I left these shirts for about 10 minutes. After about 10 minutes, I took the shirts to my utility sink and I rinsed them in cold water. Then I put them into my washer along with a little bit of Dharma's textile detergent, and I washed them using a warm water cycle. Then I soaked the shirts in my soda ash solution for 20 to 30 minutes and wrung them out of my Panda spin dryer. I kept them tied for this entire process. As you can see, these shirts have turned my soda ash solution blue. That's why I suggest not soaking your shirts that have either been discharged or reverse dyed, or that have been previously tie-dyed in your main soda ash solution container. I'm going to use some pastel colors for this shirt, and all of the colors that I've chosen are Dharma Trading Company dye colors. I'm using liquid dye for this shirt, and I've mixed up 1 cup of each of the dye colors. I'm using baby pink, sweet pea, wisteria, and baby blue. So I had some difficulty with this shirt getting the dye to fully saturate through to the middle of the shirt. As you can see, the dye is soaking into the shirt, and the shirt is wicking the dye down through the shirt or into the shirt. But every time I would check the folds to look and see whether it was getting saturated all the way through, I still had some of this taupe color left. Normally, if there's a problem with the shirt repelling the dye, it repels the dye in the beginning. It doesn't really even soak up the dye. So I'm not really sure what was going on with this shirt. You'll see at the very end. It does kind of give it a cool effect, but I didn't get the shirt fully saturated. I did end up using almost all the dye. I think the baby pink was the only one that I had any dye left over from. So I used probably about 3.5 cups of dye on this shirt. For reference, it's an extra large. 3.5 cups is quite a bit of dye to use on a shirt this size. However, as you'll be able to see toward the end of this dyeing process, I have quite a bit of runoff down in the bottom of the container. At some point, the shirt just kind of quit accepting or soaking up the dye, even though there was still area in the center that wasn't dyed properly. Like I said, I'm not quite sure what went wrong. Okay, so after I applied all the dye, I set the shirt aside and I allowed it to process for about 24 to 36 hours. Then I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out any of the soda ash. Then I untied the shirt and I rinsed it just a little while in hot water to rinse out any of the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. I decided to go ahead and soak the shirt to get out the excess dye, so I ran some really hot water in my utility sink, added a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, and I just allowed the shirt to soak. I changed out the water when it cooled off and continued the soaking process until the water was almost clear. Then I put the shirt along with some Dharma's textile detergent into my washing machine and washed it using a hot water cycle. Then after the shirt was washed and dried, this is what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I was already prepared for the fact that this shirt was not going to be fully saturated. So that didn't surprise me when I unwrapped it and I found all of the taupey areas in the middle. However, I kind of think it gives it a cool effect. With the black lines that are left in the shirt, and then the fact that it really just saturated the center of each one of those folds, I think that looks really cool. Whether I could ever replicate that again is another story, but I do think it looks cool. I'm also not quite sure why some of the areas saturated better than others. Like if you notice that blue area, kind of right in the middle of the shirt, it did pretty well. I mean, there are some areas that aren't saturated on it, but for the most part, that area is pretty saturated. But the rest of them are pretty blotchy. I don't know. I mean, normally, like I said, if a shirt isn't going to accept the dye, it starts repelling or beading right in the beginning. This didn't do that. It went ahead and soaked up the dye, but then the center of the shirt didn't want to accept the dye. It's funny how tie-dye just does its own thing sometimes, and this shirt is a good example of that. So I know the shirt didn't turn out looking perfect, but if you enjoyed the process and enjoyed watching the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.